Okay, before I actually show you the technique, I'm going to show you some of these skirts that I have for clients that I've made and the techniques that have been used for them to give you some ideas. So this is a just a fun casual one that I did. And this one is serged on for the waistband to attach the elastic, and then it's folded over. All of these are done this way, either serged or zigzagged, so I'll show you the difference between all of them. But anyway, you'll see the serged edge there. That attached the elastic, and then just a straight stitch while stretching it to sew it, attached it. And so if you stretch and sew, stretch it to the full stretch length and sew it, it'll be fine with a straight stitch. It'll stay on. So there's one. Okay, again, so that one's serge the elastic on, and then straight stitch to attach the waistband. This one was serged on and then attached with a cover stitch, and I decided not to do that after seeing how busy that stitch looks. I mean, it works, it's the inside, but when I'm going to do a cover stitch now, I'll just do a zigzag stitch. But anyway, I wanted to show you that. I mean, you can still do it if you want to, but it gets a little busy with thread when you do that. So there's that one. This one's much more complicated, so I'm not going to show you it. It's a woven one. Let's see, this is more in line with what we're doing. Okay, this one is serged on and then done with a single straight stitch, just like the other one was. And this one is serged on, and then all I did, and I'll show you how to do this. You can't hardly see the side seam on this one, but there's a little piece of thread there. Come down the side seam and stitch in the ditch to lock it down. And I did that on both sides, so that anchors it down pretty good. And then I just take and do a very loose hand stitch, blind stitch, all the way around it. And the stitches are about one there, and then one there, and very long. You can see some of the loose threads right there. That's actually where I ended it. I need to cut it off. Anyway, just very quickly you can go around these kind of fabrics and do a stitch, and that'll hold everything in place just fine. And this is the last one that I made for her. This one has cover stitch, serger attaching the elastic, and then I use my blind hammer machine to lock it down, and you can see how loose the threads are so that when it stretches it won't break them. So that one's a skip stitch where it does one, skips, does another one. So it doesn't take that much to hold these down, because once you've got them on, you know, your body's going to be up against it and it will be fine. So you can do a lot of times just quick hand stitches. It doesn't take much time at all to go around them, but if you have a blind hammer, and I think you just said you had a sewing machine and a serger, you can try using your blind stitch on your sewing machine. I don't do it because it's for clients and you know I have a blind hammer, but anyway, if you're just using it for yourself or a family member, that can work fine. But go ahead and try just doing the very quick hand blind stitch around it, and you can skip about anywhere from a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch between the stitches, and it goes very fast as you go around it. And just tie it off real nice, and you'll find that it'll stay attached. And if it breaks for some reason, you can very quickly fix it, because you don't have that many stitches in it to begin with, so it goes by very fast. So anyway, that's a few examples of what I'm going to show you. I thought I had one in here and I don't, where I attached it with a zigzag, but I'm going to show you how to attach your elastic with a zigzag stitch. And then you can tie it down however you want to in the end. But I'll show you that, and then I'll show you doing it on the serger also. So I'll show you both techniques. And as people have suggested, it's oftentimes repeating and it being a feel thing through repetition and muscle memory, I think someone mentioned. So that may be, something that you need to consider, just cutting off several scraps and just practicing. And it's amazing once you've done it a few times how everything stays in line. It's not wobbly and stuff. But anyway, let's move over to the sewing machine. I've got some fabric cut out. Let's see. Look at this. Okay, this is the mock waistband that I was doing, just testing the tension on the serger with a piece of scrap fabric. But this is actually the size of the waist before the elastic was sewed on it. So I think we'll come back on this side here and we'll attach some elastic to it. That way you'll see, I've got a little bit of serge around that edge, but we'll just serge over it. But anyway, that way you'll see a real size elastic band, because I know when they're bigger you have more space between the quarter marks, and that's probably what you're having problems with. So anyway, we'll do that next. So I'm going to do the zigzag on the first one, and the second one we'll serge it on. So see you at the sewing machine. Okay, I've got my elastic here. I think this is 1 inch elastic if I remember right. Anyway, I'm going to use white against this fabric so you can see what's going on. I'm using black thread so you can see the stitches. First thing we need to do is join our elastic together though, so I'll show you my technique for doing that. It's just a simple zigzag. I don't overlap, I just butt the two ends up together, place it under the foot, and I start out at a 4.5 zigzag when I start, and then I'll go with a narrower zigzag when I come back. Stitch length, I'm going to go with a short stitch length. Let's see here. It's about a 0.5 on this machine. So here we go. Go ahead and do the needle down. And you just want to keep your little cut seam right in the middle of the foot as you do this, and it should sew it just fine. Okay, I'm coming to the end here, so I'm going to go ahead and shorten my stitch to 0.3, which is the shortest I can get. That gives me a better chance of catching it right on the edge. Okay, so let's go one more. Okay, that's off of it now. So now I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go ahead and raise my needle, and I'm going to go from 4.5 to 3.0 when I go back over it. So here we go. I'm going to go backwards now. And it's a good idea to use a stretch needle when you do this. I'm not using it on this, so we move over to the woven, but normally I would use a stretch needle. Just go to the very edge, and you can actually go off a little bit. Raise my needle again. I'm going to go forward this time. I'm going to loosen it to 2.5. I'm going to set the length a little bit longer, so now I'm at 0.8, and I'm just going to go forward for a little ways to lock my stitches down. So anyway, that should do it. If you want to, you can go ahead and go all the way forward again. I find that's not necessary. Hang on, let me increase the speed here. I'm used to my industrial machines. There we go. And go back, and that's it, we're done. So let's go ahead and raise the needle, the thread out, cut it. Okay, so now that gives us a waistband. Let me cut these threads, get them out of the way. Okay, that gives us a waistband. It's tied together, it's smooth. I went over it a third time, which I usually don't do, but I just want to show you if you're unsure and want to be extra secure, you can do that. But anyway, you can see you can stretch it and it stays perfectly together, and it's nice and smooth when you rub your finger across it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this end where it's sewed, pinch it down, go all the way down to this end, and I'm going to mark this mark right here with a little bit of, I'll probably use a black marker so you can see it. And then I'm going to put these two together that are marked in the back seam. So that, and come all the way down, and I'm going to mark the side seam on this side and the side seam on that side, and that'll give us our quarters. So I'm going to do that off camera real quick, and then we'll come back and I will go ahead and pin at the quarter mark. So I'll mark the quarters on the waistband, I'll pin at the quarter mark in the side seams, and then we'll come back and we'll do a zigzag and we'll attach the elastic to this, and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, I've got my elastic marked at the quarter mark here. See where the green is, and there's our back seam there. And then I've marked the fabric at the quarter mark, so you'll see it's just behind the side seam. So it's not always going to be the side seam, because sometimes the back is a little bit bigger than what the front is. So anyway, I've got these marked at the quarter mark, and then front and the back right there. So we'll use this to mark it. So let's go ahead and make this the back. I'm going to use my completely serged edge because you can see how this fabric frays so badly. So anytime you get a woven that does that, you're going to serge the edge. On knits, you don't have to serge the edge. You can just put the elastic straight on. But since this is a woven and disintegrates like that, I'm going to go ahead and use the serge edge on this. And then once I do this, we'll come back and I'll cut the rest of this. This is partially serged. I'll cut that off, and I'll show you how to do a serged stitch on the edge also. So I know you said you had a serger, and I think you've got a cover stitch too, so you should be able to use those in conjunction. So anyway, I'll show you how to align it and do the serger. A lot of the principles are going to apply the same as what I'm going to do on the sewing machine with a zigzag. And so I'm going to show you the handling and everything on the zigzag, and I'm not going to be so descriptive when I do the serger part because the technique's going to be pretty much the same. Okay, so let's get this pin done. Get you some big pins. You can find these, I think Joanne has them. I got these from my industrial dealer, but they're bigger and they're thicker, and they're strong. They don't bend, and you only need 3 of them for this because we're going to start on the back seam and we have an alignment mark for it. So we only need to do 3 of them. So okay, here we go. So you're going to do this on the inside. So let me find my mark. It's on this side here. And what I'm going to do, on this, I'm going to line the edge of the elastic up with the edge of the serge stitch. But there's a trick to this, and I'll show you why. When you pin your fabric, you want to come down about twice that. Pin to your fabric. You want to come down about twice that distance to about right there and pin it, and I'll show you why. And you want to pin from the top to the bottom, and you want to get it straight also. So that's why I marked the top and the bottom of it. That way I can make sure my pin comes out right down at the bottom, as close as I can get to the bottom of it, like that. Okay, so I've got the pin there, and then I'm going to come over here and pin my center back on this position here. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to hold it. Anyway, I'm going to show you why I pin. So I'm going to start sewing right there at the edge of that serge stitch, where the edge of the elastic is right there where the serge stitch ends. And if I pull on it, you're going to see how perfectly it lines up until about right there. So I'll sew from here to about right there, and then I'll remove my pin and I'll move this back up to align perfectly up here. But you can see how that lines up by putting my pin there once I start stretching it. Let me get this lined up again. Anyway, so I'll take and I'll move the fabric to line it up like that so I can do my zigzag from there to about right there. And as soon as I see it coming away from my alignment mark, I'll take my pin out here and I'll realign this to where that distance right there lines up perfectly. And then we'll just keep going around. So let me pin it and then we'll get the sewing machine going and I'll show you how I sew it on. Okay, I'm back on this one here, so we're going to go further down. Go to the next alignment mark. It's just beyond the seam. Going down a little bit further again. So that far away from the seam. It doesn't have to be perfect, just try to keep it consistent if you can. And I'm not quite straight there, so I'm going to move my pin over and bring the elastic back over to this side and pin it into place. There we go. Alright, got those three in. I've got my alignment mark for my back and my seam and my elastic for the back, so we'll start right there. Okay, we've got everything under the machine now, and I'm going to start at the back here, so that's why I don't have to pin at the back. Got my stitch length set at 2.5. I've got my, let's tell you what, I'm going to go a little bit longer stitch because I'm going to remove this elastic and show you how to I'm going to go to 3.5. But sew yours on at 2.5. Anyway, so I'm using black thread so you can see the stitches on the elastic. My stitch length is 3.5. Yours will be 2.5. My stitch width is 4.5. So I'd normally sew it probably at 5. This machine will do 5, and I would normally do that, but a lot of machines only go to 4.5, so I'm going to use that just in case yours does. Only go to 4.5. So just go ahead and do a couple of stitches to get it anchored down. Stop with your needle down. Come down to your first pin. Grab a hold it. Pull the fabric where it meets up with the elastic. And I'm going to kind of realign the elastic and the fabric. And I'm going to go about halfway with it pulled tight. And I'm going to grab a hold of it just behind the halfway point where I can take my hand and grab it again. And then I've kind of taken and halved the quarter mark. So I'm probably doing about 1/8 at a time. That allows me to keep control and keep everything lined up. So I'm going to keep the elastic in the center of the foot. That's my alignment mark for the elastic. And with holding it and having the fabric lined up, I don't have to worry so much about the elastic distance from the edge. If it creeps a little bit, that's no big deal. But just go ahead and get started with your sewing. Concentrate on keeping the elastic right in the center of the foot and sew away. And as soon as I see it coming out of alignment, which I did there, I'm going to come a little bit further back and adjust my fabric and realign it and get me an edge here that I'll feel good with. So here we go. Okay. Seeing it coming out of alignment, so I'm going to come back now to where I've got it pinned and everything's staying aligned there. Realign the fabric here on the edge to make sure everything stays lined up, and here we go. Okay, now I'm going to take the pin out and I'm going to come about, I'm going to go ahead and go to the end and I'm going to pull it tight where the pin is. So I'm pulling everything tight, got it lined up on the edge, and then I'm coming to the halfway point here. And I'm seeing that seam, side seam, creep in a little bit more, so I'm going to hold it with my thumb here to keep it in a line, because it'll do that. And so I'm not going to be able to pull much on the fabric right here as I do this, but I want to keep that in mind as I go across that seam. Now that I've done that, I'm good. So I'm going to come back, pull on it, pull the fabric tight, realign everything, come to the halfway point, and sew 1/8 of it. And again, as I sew, the only thing I'm concentrating on is keeping the edge of that elastic in the center of the foot. So as long as everything else stays lined up, okay, I'm going to remove my pin from my alignment mark, realign the fabric to it without any tension on it, and then pull on it. And now I'll be sewing the other eighth. Realign the fabric. Okay, coming to my next pin now. I'm going to pull it tight, come about a little bit over halfway, and line the fabric up. Get everything lined up nicely. And here we go again. Okay, needle down. Going to come to where my pin is. Take the pin out. This is my final pin before I reach the back. I'll line up where it needs to be lined up. Pull the fabric tight, readjust it where it's close to the edge where I need it to be. And here we go. Okay, it's coming a little bit out of alignment, so I'm going to realign. Here we go. Okay, now I'm all the way back to where I started, where I'm holding now. Cut my thread here so it stays out of the way. Okay, pull the fabric tight. That side seam wants to creep out further again, so I'm going to come up here a little bit closer and hold it and keep the side seam from trying to work its way out further. And those side seams will always try to do that, so pay attention to that. Okay, I've got that taken care of now. Coming back to my center seam in the back where it's already sewed down. Pull it tight, line it up, go halfway with everything lined up, hold it. There we go. And we're down to the last eighth. Everything should stay nice and lined up at this point. Here we go. And I'm noticing the fabric's coming a little bit out of alignment, so I'm kind of using my finger here to keep that elastic pushed where it stays even. And we'll just go a couple of stitches over where we started, and we should be good. I would go ahead and back tack a couple of stitches, but again, I'm going to remove these, so I don't want to make it any harder than what it has to be. Okay, so let me reposition everything here and I'll show you the results. Okay, let's take a look at the results here. On my center back seam. Okay, there you see the results of trying to keep everything nice and same distance from the edge, which we did. So, see it there? It looks real nice. There, and on this side you just see the zigzag over the serged edge. I know it's kind of hard to see it, so everything's dark. The brown serged edge kind of blends in the black, but you can see the zigzag stitch going along the edge there, hopefully. But anyway, that's the way you hold it. And again, take it and divide it up into eighths. So in between your marks, pull it, line it up, and then come grab it right here and just sew that distance there, and then come hold at your mark and unpin it and realign it, and you'll sew that distance there, and then go find your next mark all the way down at the end, and then half it again. So all you're having to do is align just that bit right there, and as long as you keep the edge of that elastic in the center of the foot or real close to it, it'll come out really nice. And so you take this now and you fold it over, and you'll have a nice even edge to fold. And again, you can sew this with a straight stitch too, so all you got to do is stretch your fabric, fold it over, and then if you need to, you can actually sew it on this side, sew it right along those serge stitches right in the middle of that, and it'll anchor it down and it'll look nice. And you don't have to worry about a straight stitch popping, because you've already stretched it when you sewed it, and you'll be fine. So okay, anyway, that shows you the technique. Now I'm going to use that exact same technique when I serge it on. So I'm going to remove these stitches and cut the serged edge off, and then I'll show you how I serge it, just to let you kind of see how it works the same way. So we'll do that next. Okay, we're at my domestic serger here, and hang on just a second. One of the threads is not in the guide. There we go. Okay, we're going to do the same technique that we used on the sewing machine, except we're doing it serger now. So we're going to keep the fabric just a little bit on the inside, and it's okay if it trims some, because this stuff shreds like crazy. So the idea is going to be cutting the whiskers off the edge of it, and so we're going to go ahead and put it under the foot just a little bit before the side seam, and we're going to start sewing. So we'll just get it started. Find the foot pedal, there we go. And I'm using a 3-thread overlock with the wide setting, so the left needle on this. Okay, so that gets it started. So now we're going to start stretching. Alright, I'm going to use my left thumb here to try to guide this so it stays straight, and there's cutting just a little bit of the fabric off. So here we go. You just don't want to cut the blade. And I can see the fabric is trying to go that way a little bit, so I'm stopping to realign it, is what I'm doing. So I'm going to pull it tight again. Everything's lined up. Go ahead and needle down while it's still stretched. And now I can pull my pin out right here. Stretch it, find my alignment mark. It's just beyond that side seam. And I'm just going to hold it and go a little bit closer, and then I will move back to my other pin and realign. Go down, needle. Okay, now we can come back to this alignment mark, and you can see how this stuff is coming apart. So this is when it's good to serge them on if you can. Okay, so I'm pulling it back here, and just like before, I pinned it, this part a little bit lower, and so I know it's going to line up until about right there roughly. So here we go. Okay, it's moving away a little bit, so I'm going to come here and grab a hold of it to keep it lined up. Needle down. I can remove my pin now. Got my alignment mark there. Pull the fabric so it lines up and sew up to that point. Okay, needle down. So coming to my next pin, I'm going to pull it out here, see how it lines up. Kind of find a point here where I can grab a hold of it and make sure everything stays nice and lined up. And here we go. Okay, stop the needle down. And again, I can pull my pin out. This is my last pin. And you can see I'm doing about 1/8 of it at a time is all I'm doing. So just realign that. We're just cutting the edge off slightly. Okay, I know where my alignment mark is. 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 Okay, I know where the side seam, so I'm going to pull on it a little bit. And here we go. Okay, this is my starting point, so I'm all the way back around now, so I'm just going to pull it nice and tight. And it looks like everything's going to stay pretty well lined up, so here we go. Back to the back seam right in the middle, so lower the needle, turn the fabric so it goes off of it. And there we go. Okay, and there it is. You can see it's nice and even all the way around, stretches nicely. It's getting a little bit worn out from me sewing it and ripping the stitches out, so it's elastic. It's not the highest quality in the world. Try to use knit elastic though. It stretches and recovers very nicely. So anytime you can, that non-row elastic's really bad about once you sew it on, it stretches out so much, kind of like this is done at this point. But the first time you sew this stuff on, it'll be a lot tighter and it won't do this. So this is just from me sewing it on 3 different times. I've used this once before. But anyway, there you go. There's the seam. There it is from that side. So if you fold it over, what you're going to see, well, I almost don't have enough fabric there, but that's going to be your edge when you fold it over. And you can sew this on with a straight stitch if you need to, or you can do a blind hem. Do a blind hem by hand. Either way. So anyway, that's it. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them, but hopefully this will help you get your elastic on nice and straight. That's it. Take care.